Okay, so I think we are still somewhere here, correct?
Betul, Doktor.
Okay, all right. So let's just continue from there. Sekejap eh. Okay, let's just continue from here. Okay, so basically, if we can just recap very fast, what we did was we have gone through basically history there. Okay, so and then we talk about how management basically revolves a lot daripada sekejap ramai masuk revolve a lot from military purposes. Okay, so then we went through dalam 1950s and then the term was formalized around 1970s, something like that lah. Okay, so dengan Project Management Institute and so on. Okay, so okay, all right. So for today, okay, so basically we will complete the remaining of the apa tu of the slides for this topic. Okay, so basically this topic is about history of project management. Tapi we will talk a bit which is important at the end part of the lecture, which is on triple constraint, trade-off, project priority matrix dan sebagainya. Okay, so that is important. So basically, okay, so when we mention about project management, okay, so it consists of skill, it consists of tool, it consists of processes. Okay, so project management, it does not only, maksudnya you have a very good skill in managing time, but you don't have the perfect tool to assist you pun, it wouldn't be that well. Okay, so you will need a combination of skill, tool, and processes to ensure that your project management could be executed well. Okay, so you can just imagine that you might have the skills that are required. Okay, so in your mind, you got a super good time management, tapi you don't have proper tools to actually arrange for the schedule and so on. You tak nampak. So how the time will overlap between the activities. Still no point. Okay, and if you do not have a proper process, so you do not understand the previous activities, the next activities, activities which are concurrent. So a series of processes. What are the input for the next activity? If you do not have that in proper manner pun tak boleh. Okay, so hence it's a combination of skills. Okay, so you need to have the skills of the basic skill. I believe you can recall. Okay, so basic skill any manager would need to have will be conceptual, okay, so people skill and also technical skill, okay, but on top of that you will be able to see that you might see time management, critical thinking skills, so skills that could assist you, okay, and then you would need to have tools, okay, so living only with skills might uh, uh, dia macam might constrain you from moving faster lah. Okay, so tools are there to assist us. For example, if you're going to map the entire construction activities, just using 2D in terms of simple Gantt chart, it would not represent the entire project. So you nowadays we are assisted by tools such as Microsoft Project, Primavera to come up with at least a proper combination that could ease you quite a lot. Okay, so tools. And also processes. So we have activities, processes scheduled in a coherent manner. Okay, so you need to have that. So with that, you should be able to have at least a proper management in place. Okay, so the next also is a combination of this. Okay, so in isolation, it does not work that well. Okay, so you will need these three in combination to ensure that you got a perfect blend kat sana. Okay, all right. So other than that, dia bukanlah definition, but it can mean these things. Okay, so project management can be about decision making. right? So when you are managing a project, you would need to make decisions. Okay, you have various alternative option for to conduct a construction. Your construction method to not only one. So you can sort different subcontractor to conduct your work. So tapi mana yang kita nak pilih? Which shall we select? So proper decision making would be important. Okay, so and obviously when we are making decision making, it is not normally in construction kita based on this kind of heuristic. Okay, so based on experience, and normally you can see that sometimes they say, okay, I work 20 years, so I know what I'm doing. So based on experience and based on the things they do again and again and again, based on historical. Tapi sometimes, you know, over times, we don't realize that we started off wrong. Okay, so we started out initially the decision we make might be better. There might be better decisions that we make. Tapi cuma sebab we have gone through years, decades of doing the same thing, we thought that is the best. So actually, when we are making decision, evaluation needs to be done. Assessment needs to be done, looking into current option that we have, and evaluating the risk, the probability kita akan lose or kita akan win. So there are tools to assist us in decision making. So it shouldn't be just because we have done the same thing over and over again for 10, 20 years, then that will be the best decision. Sometimes it might not. Sometimes we thought we made the best decision 10, 20 years ago, but things might have changed. Okay, so decision making is about making very important ialah informed decision. Informed in a sense that you have all the information available and you make your decision based on all the information. So that's why it's a very important bila kita buat decision in a certain difficult situation, we make it based on information and also based on at that point logical reasoning. So dia tak boleh based on perasaan, dia tak boleh based on bias, it cannot be based on just I thought so. So bila I thought so, when the consequences happen later, then the regret comes in, it will kick in. Okay, so thought so tu bahaya lah basically. Okay, so decision making should be very informed. Okay, so project management is about changing people's behavior. This one I would not like agree that much to it. It's quite difficult to change people's behavior. Especially when we are in an organization, you might influence people to a certain extent, but expecting people to change their behavior, I don't think anyone could even expect that lah. So I think we as an individual, I think it's quite difficult for us to put hope, okay, people would change. Sometimes it's much easier said than done. So because we can't control people, no way that we can control people. So importantly, when we are in an organization, it is not about changing the behavior, but it is just influencing them little by little through the culture. Okay, so that's why sometimes you akan jumpa words the words like organizational culture of an organization. It could change you, or it could temporarily it could influence you to act like them. Okay, so especially I think I mentioned this about organization yang emphasize on safety. Okay, so once you enter an organization, let's say you're a fresh grad, you masuk into an organization that highly emphasize on safety, very empathetic. They take the employees' complaints seriously. They look into all aspects of safety and health. Okay, so safety and health. So safety, keselamatan, health is the well-being tu. Okay, so termasuk mental well-being. So once you started out with such organization, you get kind of used to it. Let's say you are not like that, but sooner or later you kind of get used to working in such a way that it might influence you to a certain extent. Tapi once you leave that organization, will you carry that? It is questionable jugalah. You might carry that or you might not. You get into another organization and that will be 360 from there. So quite difficult. Okay, so it is not about changing, but it is about maybe influencing. The word is more subtle rather than a changing people's behavior lah. Okay, so project management is about creating environment conducive to getting critical projects done. Okay, so loss of project management ataupun these are some things that we say lah. Okay, so when things appear to be going better, you have overlooked something. It's like rarely that you can see everything is so smooth and you don't see a problem. Sometimes when it's too good to be true, everything is so smooth, mungkin kita terlepas pandang something. Okay, so we need to always have that to, so maybe we have overlooked certain process ke, so something like that, so that we are always on our feet on that. Okay, so no system has ever debug, attempts to debug, eventually introduce new bugs. Okay, so basically no system is perfect lah. Okay. Okay, rasa yang ni tak ada apa sangat lah. Okay, so this is important. Cuma I don't need you to like memorize this. Okay, so you don't need to like memorize benda ni. So you just need to know. Okay, so what is a project? Basically, a project is a set of people, okay, and other resources temporarily assembled to reach a specified objective, normally with a fixed budget, with a fixed time period. Okay, so projects are generally associated with product, procedures that are being done for the first time, or with known procedures that are being altered. Okay, so importantly, when we talk about project, you need a set of people, you need resources, and both are basically temporary. Okay, so the organization chart that you usually see at the site office is temporary. Once the project has completed, then you move on to the next project, a new team will be assembled. However, you need that basically to achieve a certain objective. Okay, for example, to build a luxurious bungalow, okay, within a certain time frame, within a certain budget that has been provided by your client. Okay, so very important, project is temporary in nature. Okay, so it's a temporary endeavor ataupun temporary effort to create a unique product. Okay, so unique product or service in a sense that you do not have the same project, you do not have a same project twice. Okay, it is unique in this sense, it's not unique design. Your design can be the same, tapi it is built by different team of workers. It is built by in a different location, for example, or it goes through different weather, for example. So unique maksudnya usually every project is unique. You can't say two projects to be the same, even though the design is the same. Even though the site sebelah menyebelah, you might come across problem which might differ slightly from each other. Maybe the soil condition on the other side slightly berbeza sedikit ke, ataupun the worker team of workers who are building it slightly different in nature. Okay, so workmanship might be different. So unique in that form. Okay, so project unique does not mean the design is unique. Bukan. So unique, every project is unique even though the design is the same. Okay, so it can be in terms of weather. Okay, so let's say two project, one design both designs are the same. Cuma the next phase started later. So the time of the year is different. Okay, so unique. So Basically untuk project, importantly, it is temporary. Okay, so meaning to say that any construction project, it is temporary in nature. Okay, so you can't have a construction project forever and ever. Then it's not a construction project. It is more on a maintenance pula. Okay, so it's not a project. So it's more on maintenance, repairing and maintenance is basically ongoing. Okay, so you are the monthly maintenance and so on. But construction, 2-3 years. That's all. Okay, so it's temporarily. So that's why when we are talking about job opportunities, right? Is that there is a limit for us to construct. How much can we construct? Takkan sampai the earth basically clear off kan? Okay, so we can keep constructing and constructing until what? The earth gets bold ke? Tak adalah. Okay, so there will come a time whereby it goes back to dia dah tak construct. So we are talking about rehabilitation. We are talking about maybe construct tapi more on demolishing and then construct balik on the same site. So something like that. So we are moving we are moving towards brownfield. Okay, so nowadays we are still doing greenfield. So you can see houses makin lama makin pinggir Klang Valley. Okay, so last time we have houses built within the Klang Valley. And then slowly we are clearing up areas of oil palm, for example. So you can see top of Klang Valley towards Rawang. We are clearing the area. At the south part towards Nilai, Seremban, we are clearing that area. Okay, so basically used to be palm oil palm plantation, or before oil palm plantation, it is used to be hutan. Okay, so it's green, and then we turn it into agricultural land, and then now we are turning it into a residential land. So basically, we are clearing and clearing, but how far can we clear? Okay, so that is only that much of earth you have. Okay, so and so hence the movement is basically towards brownfield. Okay, so brownfield is where we build our building. Okay, so or we refurbish building yang dah ada. So brownfield biasanya being associated with areas such as factories, old factory area. Okay, so dah ada digunakan. Okay, so old buildings. Okay, so we have quite a lot of structures which are abandoned structures. So if you can, some of the structures have been rehabilitated and rebuilt, so the building is okay, but some just left macam tu. So sayang lah, we have quite a lot of abandoned projects halfway through tapi tak complete. Okay, so those are the areas where need to be assessed. If it's okay, then we build back, continue where it has been left out. Okay, so check on the structural integrity. Okay, then it could be continued. Also, area macam nowadays, we are also constructing in mine. Okay, mining areas. So nowadays, especially Puchong areas, mining areas, a lot of houses are being constructed there. Obviously, with ground remedy lah. Okay, so because it's all mining area. Also landfill area. Okay, so landfill is also quite is dangerous lah. There are risks to it. Okay, so the methane gas and so on. So obviously the ground should be treated before they could construct. But well, anyhow, what I'm trying to say is basically there is only that much you can construct. So sooner the things are moving into rehabilitation. So we rehabilitate, old buildings, or the most pun kita demolish and construct balik on the land. Macam tu lah. Okay, so basically project is temporary. So it's only if you're talking about short construction, a year, 2 years, 3 years, okay. But the field or the area of maintenance of a building, it takes quite a while. Okay, so the job or basically I think the movement forward will be in terms of looking into how to maintain what we have. All right, so how do we check the structural integrity? What are the things do we need to ensure that the building would stay for 30 years? Okay, so your construction is only 3 years, but your maintenance is 27 years if the building is designed for 30 years. So that are areas which need to be tapped in. Sebab sebelum ni we talk a lot on construction, building something new and so on. But sometimes kita terlupa yang once we construct, what is going to happen to the building. That's why sometimes you see lepas setahun dua the building looks shabby. So not in a proper, well-maintained manner. Especially kalau the client is not the one who is governing the building. So, but if client is the one governing the building, of course, once after construction, they will maintain it and it would be proper lah, basically. Okay. Right. So project in nature, it is temporary and also unique. Okay. And it can be of any size, right? So construction, it can be small, it can be big. Okay. Not only construction, if we are talking about project per se, it can be software development project. Okay, so I think I mentioned a couple of times car design. Okay, new car design project. So if you're going to come up with new car and you're trying to be competitive between the other brands, especially if you're moving towards having this hybrid car and so on, the technology wise should be incorporated. It should be fast lah. If you take 5-10 years to come up with a new car, maybe you dah obsolete lah by the time you nak keluarkan the kereta. Okay, so it can be a large, small project. Okay, so temporary in nature. So it distinguishes project from operation. So very important, daily operation is not a project because you will be doing the same thing or basically it will be under maintenance ongoingly until the end of the life cycle of a building. Okay, so it should be temporary. So it is different from operation and unique. So it is not the same old thing. Okay, so these are some of the examples of project. Okay, so you can see that even planning a wedding is a project. Designing, implementing a computer system, software is a project. Okay, so all of these are basically a project. Okay, so what is not a project? Okay, so emergency response is not a project. Any repair, any troubleshooting is not a project. Any routine maintenance, okay, so which is the one that in built environment is not a project. Okay, so a whole built environment, okay, so the construction part is the project. 3 years, 2-3 years of project, but the remaining part, okay, so of 27 is not a project. Akram, you have question ke? Ke tersilap tekan?
Silap tekan.
Okay. All right, so routine operation, okay, so maintenance of equipment is not a project. Okay, so it is ongoingly done. So still more or less it comes to the same thing. Okay, so characteristics of a project must be unique. Okay, so each project would have different what do you call structures. Okay, different timing, probably different budget. Even though with the same design, you might get a different team of workers to build it, different ground conditions. So hence it is unique. Okay. Project have specific objective, right? So require resources, have budget. Resources meaning to say you would have equipment, the materials, so budget, schedule, effort of people, measures of quality will apply. Okay, so for construction, how do we measure our quality? Do we measure quality in construction?
Yes.
Adakah kita measure quality? How do we measure the quality?
Maybe dari segi masa untuk di-completekan the project.
Okay, that one is time. Okay, quality. So time,
Material
yes.
use.
Again,
Material use.
material use, correct. Lagi, other than that, how else do we measure the quality of construction? Who checks on the quality in construction? Any idea?
QS?
Yes?
QS?
QS ke? QS will check on the budget normally. So normally QS akan buat estimation and kind of like check on the budget. Siapa lagi? Who does the quality checking in construction? Selain daripada tu, you might heard of QA/QC engineer. But let's say we leave the QA/QC engineer. Let's say a construction does not have a QA/QC engineer. Who else will check the quality?
Project manager?
Project manager, kurang tepat. Project manager might just like at a glance, but rarely that the project manager would have the time to ensure, to check, pergi on site, tiles okay, tiang tu okay, column is fine. Rarely that will be done by a project manager.
SO, Superintending Officer.
Superintendent officer can be the architect, can be the engineer. So, tapi tak close. They might do it, but at a very superficial manner. Sometimes dia tak buat pun. There's someone else.
QC.
Yes, quality control, QA/QC engineer. Okay. So, selain daripada QA/QC engineer, have you heard of clerk of work? Or resident engineer, RE?
COW, pernah dengar?
Ada kan? Okay. Alright. So while we are at this quality thing, let me just describe slightly. Okay. So for construction, the time clear. We have a Gantt chart. We have this Microsoft project dan sebagainya. So we can compare. That is what we plan, and what could be observed on the site. Apa yang dah siap, more or less. So, but you can't also measure it 100% tepat lah. Okay, so you can imagine you have plumbing going on kat sini, bricklaying, roofing kat sana. You want to get a perfect percentage, 74% complete. Quite difficult. Okay, but anyhow, normally when they do this monthly report, monthly progress report, usually they more or less. Okay, so because every month kita kena buat progress report so that we get paid. Okay, so the contractor would acquire, this is the percentage completion, and the client would need to provide this progress payment lah, lebih kurang. So normally the contractor would say that, okay, let's say it's 74% complete, and submit those claims to the client. Okay, so client would have their QS to check betul ke tak that was completed. Okay, more or less is worth 74%, then we release the payment. Okay, so that's on time. On cost, basically, how much budgeted for that and how much you have spent. That one is straightforward. So material yang dia beli, how much and so on. And quality is the one yang do we measure ke do we not measure? But definitely we have something in place. Okay, for quality, usually on the site you would have clerk of work, COW. So clerk of work would be the architect's representative to check the quality on site. Okay, quality of the tiles, of the paint. Does it follow the specification or drawing that is being provided by the architect. So you need someone to make sure that architect's drawing perlukan specification of this type of tiles. On the side, that is the tile that is being supplied and installed. So betul. Okay, so one is in terms of material. One more is in terms of how the workmanship. Okay, so for example, in terms of floor tiling, tiles tu was the method properly done? Okay, so did they check the alignment and so on? Okay, so did they create the proper slope in the bathroom, for example? Sebab dia tak boleh flat kan, you need water to actually drain off from the piping system. So those are the thing. And then column, is the column basically, you know, in a line 90 degrees manner. So those are the workmanship yang normally being checked lah. Okay, so basically clerk of work will check on architectural works. Okay, roofing. Okay, so the material used for roofing and then the layers that they provide for roofing, betul ke? So those are the things. For engineering part, structural part, usually you have RE on site. Okay, so resident engineer. So any concreting work, if you have come across, you will see subcon that install semua benda. Okay, so all the reinforcement bar being installed, you need to get the RE to the site to check betul ke tak the installation of the reinforcement bar. Okay, so the lapping, is it correct or not? The size of the reinforcement bar, is it correct or not? According to the drawing. And also, they do also this concrete testing. Okay, slum test, for example, that would be done maybe after 3 batches. Usually they do a slum test, or mungkin every batch yang turun they do a slum test. Okay, so cube test, so those are on structural material. So for quality assurance on the site, besides the QAQC, if you do not have this QAQC, you should have clerk of work that acts on behalf of the architectural works, okay, and also engineer. Okay, so it can be resident engineer for a structural or resident engineer for M&E works as well. Okay, so those you need someone to ensure that apa yang being done in by the subcontractor is according to the drawing and specification. Okay, so that is the normal way of assuring that quality tu terjaga, because you will sign off the document. So let's say the column is in a horrible condition, and then realize that the lapping, the reinforcement bar tak betul, so it is signed off by someone, so that someone would be responsible for it. Okay, so that is the common way of just ensuring the quality. But nowadays, and in fact, CIBB, they have something called QLASIC, QLASSIC. Okay, so QLASIC is basically a more objective measurement of workmanship. So if nowadays we conduct it, tapi we conduct, okay, architect, they have forms to fill. Structure, they have forms to fill. But QLASIC is like one checklist. They have these elements that you need to check. Okay, so the straightness of a column and so on. So usually QLASIC, if an organization wants to prove that their project is good, okay, the quality is good, so normally they will acquire this CIDB personnel to the site, do the checking and give marks for it. Okay, that's why sometimes you can see project yang memaparkan 80% QLASIC points. So it is a selling point. It shows that the workmanship of that project is good. So at least it will bring in more buyers lah, kan? So because sometimes we buy a house and then you get into it, a lot of workmanship issues. Okay, so plumbing not working, a lot of things. But anyhow, a more objective assessment ialah yang QLASIC tu. It can give you in terms of how many percentage of workmanship that you dapat. 80% consider macam you get A lah for workmanship. So you will encourage buyers to buy a home kat sana. So that one is a more objective measurement. So, but obviously it comes with a certain fees. But if an organization wants to look into quality to improve it, tapi do not need that kind of acknowledgement, you just follow je lah checklist CIDB tu. So you can just follow the checklist and you conduct it on the site to ensure that your workmanship is good, something like that. Okay, so that is the measure of quality. Okay. All right, so and obviously the measure of quality on the site should reflect what has been agreed in the contract document. So in the contract document is where you would have the drawing, very important. Okay, so and also the specification. Drawing needs to be read together with specification, because sometimes drawing just mention there tiles in search, but your specification would mention what type of tiles to be specific, okay, the thickness and so on. So it must be read together with specification. Okay, so projects require temporary organization. Okay, so it's just sementara, and when it's temporary, it is not permanent in nature lah. Okay. Okay, so this is another definition. Okay, so organized work towards a predefined goal or objective, require resources, effort, unique, okay, have budget, schedule, is temporary. So you can see that the words lebih kurang sama je. Okay, so there's nothing else to describe project. Okay, so it's unique, temporary, you have objective, budget, resources, and it's unique. Okay, so those are the words yang kita kerap guna. Okay, so objectives of project management, right? So first, to ensure that the project is correctly designed to meet its objective. Okay, to ensure project is completed on schedule, within resource, within the budget, and to provide a mechanism for monitoring the project. Okay, for the first one, okay, so to ensure that the project is correctly designed to meet its objective. So project management, basically it ensures that the project's objective outcome are fully agreed by all involved. So project management starts from the very beginning. Okay, meaning to say that we need to understand what the client wants. We need to define. So that's why our chapter yang seterusnya tu is about project definition. Okay, so we need to understand and then we define what the project is about. Okay, so and your objective outcome should be agreed by all involved. Obviously by the funder, but if it involves stakeholder lain, especially you would have any user, passerby, that could create nuisance. So they might be also accountable to provide complaints or feedbacks. Okay, so stakeholders involved. So you need to ensure that the objectives are achievable. Okay, so it's very important because when we come up with the objective, the duration must make sense. Sometimes that is the problem. If a contractor agrees to objective yang impossible to be completed, then dia akan jadi a failed project because you are agreeing to a project with a very tiny budget. That's the reason how you can come up with project yang mana material is not in a proper quality and so on. Well, if everyone plays it following the right rule and the right specification, well, you wouldn't have a problem. Tapi itulah sometimes it's not it's not a bed of roses lah kan. Okay, so you might see quite a lot of different things happening on site, but if everyone follow the rule, then dia dah takkan ada masalah. Okay, so ensure the objectives are achievable. Okay, just because sometimes contractor would want to get a project, walaupun know pretty well the budget is low and the time is tight, tapi just because you need the project, so sometimes makes things difficult. Okay, but ideally we want objectives which are achievable. Okay, so ensure that objectives satisfy customers' need. Okay, so in construction, normally we would say our customer is our client lah because they are paying for it. Tapi we sometimes terlupa yang the end user is the customer yang paling hujung. Okay, especially when we are buying house kan. We don't have our say. We can't customize our house as what we want it to be. So that's why sometimes you can see customer end user just buy a house because of the land. And then you can see dia renovate the entire house because the dalam tu tak menepati cita rasa. So it's not like phone, it's not like laptop that we can actually see a different specification to suit our needs. Construction is not as such. So it is pretty they're less flexible lah. Okay, so normally that's why sometimes you can see people change the way house looks. Ataupun kat luar if you can't change because due to certain regulation that you could not change the color scheme or whatsoever outside, tapi dalam dia berbeza. So that is within your control. Tapi you have to do it on your own lah. If no, you accept as it is what is given. So that's why construction is very different from other sectors because well, we can only address customers' needs to a certain point je. Okay, so we can customize it accordingly. Cuma I think recently someone from Sime Darby kot Sime Darby mentioned to me that, well, Sime Darby is like moving towards having this customizable condo units. Cuma how they'll do it, what is the cost, I was not made known. So I got no idea. I was just like thinking it must be pretty expensive because they are trying to come up with several designs that you can customize. You can select as a customer, this is the design I want, they will do it accordingly. Tapi cuma, I'm not sure what is the pricing. But I think we are moving towards there lah, cuma quite not there yet. Okay, so next project management is to ensure that project is completed within the schedule, resource and budget. Okay, so this is to ensure that everything, all the resource, budget are agreed, consistent with the needs of the project. Okay, so once we have identified the objective and that is being approved by the stakeholders, then we need to have this to ensure it's consistent with the objective set. Okay, ensure that the life of the project is clearly defined. And next, project management allows for a mechanism to monitor the project. Okay, so while you have come up with the objective and then we have allocated resources, we run the project, we need to make sure the project complete within the objective yang kita set awal-awal tu. Okay, so this is to make sure that the project does not depart from the agreed path that we have agreed upon. So it provides mechanism to examine progress. Okay, so whether it's a quarterly progress and agreed regular communication. Normally in construction, we would have a monthly progress. Okay, so normally you have client, consultant, contractor meeting monthly because and your progress payment is provided by the client monthly. So rarely that we do quarterly. Okay, so normally even project kecil pun is monthly because the payment is on a monthly basis. Okay, so monitoring ni will be one chapter by itself kemudian. Okay, so provides mechanism for correcting or stopping any failing project. So once we monitor, we will identify if we are on path or we have deviated. So if we have deviated, then dia perlu ada corrective action. Okay, correction needs to be done ASAP so that dia tak deviate more and more. That's why sometimes when we identify problem, if we don't correct it there and there itself, the problem will get bigger. So sometimes we thought that we'll sleep over it and it will go away. It will not go away. Okay, so it needs to be rectified. So hence, kena buat sesuatu lah. Okay, so without action plan, then don't expect any changes to happen lah. So dia akan slowly, dia akan deviate worse than that. Okay. Why do we need project management? Today's complex environment. Okay, so things are getting more complex. Even a small project, it is getting more complex because of the constraint of budget. If the budget is not of constraint, maybe the environment will not be that complex. So the budget sometimes kind of like makes things that much complicated. Okay. Okay, ini tak ada apa sangat lah. Okay, the next thing is basically project management trade-off. Actually, I have another slide kat sini. Just we'll go through this and then I'll top up from there. Okay, so the next thing that we'll touch about will be project management trade-off. Okay, the word trade-off meaning to say that what we can give away, what we can accept. Okay, as a client, okay, so if we want, can we have the best cost, the best time, and the best scope? Can I have a project with the lowest cost as possible, shortest time to complete, but the best scope? Boleh tak? Possible? Is it possible that we have a project with the lowest cost, shortest time, but the best scope ever? Scope dia fulfilling lah, tapi lowest cost and shortest time.
Susah.
Susah sangat. Okay, it's a very, very difficult. So that's why normally at the beginning of the project, we will need to get the client to tell us yang mana that you can leeway. Okay, which one that you could trade off. So maybe there are clients that could trade off on time. Okay, I don't need the project to complete urgently. If there is a delay, I still can accept. Okay, ataupun you would have client yang think that okay, time is a constraint. I want the scope to be exactly as what I wanted. Tapi in terms of cost, I don't mind if it got increased slightly along the way. Okay, so a client that allows a cost to be increased to a certain point. Scope pula, if the client who might be okay if the scope is to be reduced. So let's say not to the quality or not to the specification that is being required. So reduce in scope. So that will be on the trade-off on the scope. So at the very beginning of the project, this is what needs to be ascertained from the client. Yang mana that the client could terima if kurang sikit. Okay, whether the increase in cost, increase in time, or the reduction in scope. Okay, so bukan increase in scope. So you need to remember that these three things, the trade-off ialah if the client would need to increase in cost, and would need to increase in the time, and would need to reduce in the scope. Okay, so that's the trade-off or that's the giveaway yang the client needs to give. Okay. So the three items here. Okay, so the time constraint is the amount of time available to complete a project. Cost constraint is the budgeted amount available for the project. And scope constraint is what needs to be done to come up with the project's end result. Okay, so time, cost, budget, and also scope. What the activities or what elements needs to be done to produce the end result. So these three constraints are often competing constraints. Okay, so you can imagine that when you increase in scope, okay, so you nak menambah kerja or you want to enhance the quality, that might require the increase in time and increase in cost. Okay, so imagine that let's say rather than painting 3 rooms in a house, the client says that, okay, I want to paint all. Okay, so rather than 3 rooms, maybe 5 rooms to be painted. So obviously that additional scope would result in increased time and would increase in cost because you need more resource workers, you need more tools, and you need more material. Okay, so increase in scope will result in increase in time, increase in cost. That's why sometimes when the client make changes tengah-tengah during construction, it is very tedious. Okay, because the time has been fixed, cost has been fixed. Tapi if there are change in scope, especially by the client, it is a massive headache actually for the person who's gonna do, because those has been planned much earlier. So that's why in project management, dia ada satu topik khas on change management. If there are change in scope, especially, how do we deal with that? So usually sometimes we try to avoid scope changes lah, especially bila project dah start. Okay. All right, so a tight time constraint. Okay, so if you have a tight time constraint, it could mean increase in cost. Okay, because when your time is tight or when you're trying to squeeze your time, you need to get in more people to complete the project in a shorter manner. Okay, you need to get in more material equipment to help you to squeeze the time, right? So that would increase in cost and might also reduce in scope. Because let's say you're trying to shorten it to a very short time. So the client might need to reduce in scope. Okay, so that's the, what do you call? That's the trade-off. Okay. And a tight budget. Okay, so if there is a squeeze in budget, you might need to increase the time. Okay, so because you do not have that much of money to get in people. Okay, so if you have a tight budget, the workers will be less on the site. The material point, you might be buying it in a small volume manner. Okay, so tight budget. So hence, you will increase the time. Not many worker, not many material. You can see the project slowly in a very slow manner. Setakat 2-3 orang bekerja. But if you have the budget, you can get more people and you can work within a shorter period of time. Okay, so tight budget would mean increased time and would reduce the scope as well because your budget is tight. Okay, so you can see that you can't get the best of everything. So you would have something that you need, the others would need to sacrifice. Okay, so you have something you have the others to sacrifice there. Okay, but this one I will go through also in another slide so that you thoroughly understand on that. Okay, so we'll get back on the triple constraint tu kat hujung ataupun I think, okay, I'll go to that slide terus lah. Later on, I'll provide you the latest slide where I will combine this one into this one. Okay, so this one is just similar, cuma I try to explain it in more detail, project priority matrix. Okay. Kejap, it's 11. Do you want a short break? Maybe we have like a 5 minutes break and we come back at around 11:05. Please make sure you come back because this is important.
Okay, Doktor, boleh.
Okay, Doktor.
All right. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so we did stop just now at triple trade-off. Okay, so trade-off ataupun triple constraint sama lah. Okay, so this one is a additional slide, but I will place it dalam notes tu. I akan bagi balik notes tu. Okay, so I'll combine it. Right, so trade-off and triple constraint, more or less we are talking about the same thing. Okay, so the same item ialah cost, ialah financial constraint. Okay, so also known as project budget. Scope ialah task required to fulfill the goals, and time ialah schedule to reach the completion. Okay. Okay, so triple constraint states that the success is impacted by its budget, deadline, features. Okay, you can see the the words are basically synonymous lah in nature. Okay, so cost, time, scope. So as a manager, you can trade between these three constraints. However, changing the constraints of one means that the other two will suffer to some extent, like we have discussed earlier. Okay, so how do we actually map it? We can actually map it in a very simple manner. Okay, so project priority matrix is a tool for us to get input from the client, and we put it in a simple mapping. Okay, so we call it project priority matrix sebab dia dalam bentuk matrix. Okay, so it's a structured approach to working on what matters most for the project stakeholders. So it's a simple tool that provides a way to sort several items into importance ataupun yang mana of priority. Okay, so it identifies the relative importance by providing a means of ranking based on criteria that are determined to be important. Okay, so project priority matrix, this is project priority matrix. Okay, so you need to have the variables here. Let's say we are only talking about 3 variables, but nowadays you dah boleh go more than that lah, because there are some clients who are emphasizing on green facility. There are some clients who are emphasizing on safety, on other attributes. Okay, so but the basic ialah the elements or goal that we want to address. Okay, so the time, the cost, the performance or scope basically. Okay, I would basically prefer the word scope lah. Okay, so time, cost, scope. And we can arrange it based on priority, whether the element is to be constrained or the element needs to be enhanced or the elements could be accepted. Okay, so these 3 points here berbeza. All right, so project priority matrix is a tool where as a project manager, you need to get this point here, this bullet here. Okay, so this round thing here is where you as a manager would need to decide based on input from the client. So you should come up with here kosong dulu. Okay, so but this input here, okay, so should be placed after you ask the client which of these elements is a constraint. Maksudnya, if there are addition to that, tak boleh, and there are reduction to that pun tak boleh. That is the constraining element. So if looking from here, if the client give you the response as such, it means that time is the constraint for the client. Okay, scope is to be enhanced. Okay, so kalau boleh, enhance the scope factor. Enhancing the scope factor can mean additional assurance on the quality, workmanship maybe, or the addition of the work or area that to be worked on. Okay, so enhance. Enhance maksudnya tambah lah. Okay, so make better. Ataupun the word make better. Sekejap let me just type here. So or else we say make better. Okay, accept is where the client is happy to allow that as a trade-off, maksudnya as a leeway. So accept here means the client accept if the cost factor will increase. Okay, so if we go one by one, if we talk about time constraint, okay, if the project is 1 year, which means the client wants it to complete within 1 year juga. Okay, so in the contract 1 year lah. Okay, so that is constraint. If cost is to be constrained, if the project is allocated 1 million, that is the constraint. You cannot go beyond that. 1 million is the constraint. Okay, and for scope, okay, so this one is scope. Okay, for scope, if scope is to be constrained, meaning to say that if in the contract stated that you need to build 3 bungalows, okay, with that specification, that is agreed in the contract, and that will be constrained. So which means the client do not accept anything less than 3 bungalow with the specification given in the contract constraint. So they're not exactly the same as what has been agreed. Okay, so constraint part is as such. Okay, enhance pula. Okay, enhance or make better. If the client choose to enhance time, which means the client would want you to reduce the time. Okay, so make better or enhance the time factor, which means the client wants you to, if possible, reduce the time factor. Okay, enhance the cost ataupun make better the cost, meaning to say that the client would want you to, if possible, reduce the cost. Okay, enhance the scope, maksudnya make better the scope, increase the scope. Okay, so whether it's in a form of workmanship ataupun scope kerja, okay, you need to increase. So you need to be careful that when you talk about enhance time, do not increase time, yeah, because increase time would not enhance, it will make worse. Okay, so the word would be make better. Make better, if if a client wants you to enhance the time factor, it means it wants you to reduce the time. Enhance the cost factor, reduce the cost. Enhance the scope factor, increase the scope. Okay, next one is accept. Okay, accept is where the client is okay if there are deviation to that. Okay, accept the time factor, maksudnya the client could accept if there are delays in completing the project. Okay, accept this cost factor, meaning to say that the client would accept if there are any over budget or additional costs incurred to complete a project. Okay, so they accept if there are any increase in cost, accept if there are any increase in time, and accept in terms of scope is where the client could accept if there are any reduction in scope. Okay, so maksudnya if there are any reduction in the work scope or reduction in workmanship, the quality of assurance, so it could be accepted by the client. Okay, so usually this priority matrix, if you as the project manager, you will need to get this point from the client. Which of this factor is the constraining factor? Okay, so obviously it would differ depending on the client. Okay, so time constraint may be someone who is maybe private in nature. Okay, so let's say this client is actually coming up with a shopping mall, for example, and because end of the year usually is the shopping period, so the constraint is that the project needs to be completed before end of the year. So dia ada constraining factor kat sana. Okay, but in comparison, like client who's maybe public project, okay, maybe it's a school project, for example. So mungkin the urge of time might not be there if let's say there are other schools nearby. Okay, so maybe the time constraint is not that urgent, probably depends on the type of project. Okay, so but for private, maybe if they kerja certain deadline to get back their investment kan, okay, so the return of the investment, maybe they need to complete it fast, so time might be of a constraint. Okay. Enhance, for example, let's say enhancing in scope or enhancing in any features. So for example, maybe the playground, for example. Okay, if a client were to come up with a playground, children playground, so maybe that scope needs to be enhanced to make it safer. For example, there are any additional safety features that could be implemented. Okay, so enhance the scope factor. Accept cost, maybe a client who is actually with the time constraint, okay, so might want to accept the cost. Okay, because we need to complete within the time frame, and there are need for us to actually increase more manpower, then the client would probably accept the increase in cost. Okay, so all of this is respond by one client. Okay, so normally we can't have this the best constraint semua ni tak boleh, or enhance semua ni tak boleh. So normally it will be 1-to-1. Okay. Alright. So far, any question on this trade-off dengan project priority matrix? Okay.
Tak
I guess
ada.
tak ada I guess it's clear. Okay. So moving on from the trade-off dengan project priority matrix, it is towards the end of this chapter lah. Okay. So ni tak ada apa sangat lah. Ini tak ada apa sangat. Okay, this one, okay, project life cycle. Okay, so when we are talking about project life cycle, normally it starts with the concept at the conceptual level. Okay, so normally we call it conceptual, preliminary. Okay, so at that point when we are starting a project, we need to do several things. So much of it to look into our competition and so on. So any project in that nature, if you are coming up with a construction project, a residential area, you need to check do you have the right buyers for the type of project that you are actually developing. So if you're coming up with a luxurious bungalow, tapi that area potentially is so difficult to get buyer, too far from the town. So those are the things you might want to check at that point of time. Okay, so that if you do not put the effort here, okay, so the effort should be high at the front end. If you do not place the right effort here, you might be regretting here because you have a lot of units not sold. So it's very important that when we are coming up with certain project, you need to know who will be your target buyers. Okay, so that's why market input is very important. Okay, so normally any project, business, even business, you need to do market survey. So you need to survey whether you will be getting the buyers to buy your product kemudian hari itu. Okay, so market survey. And then you should also survey on the competition. Okay, so several township in one area, what makes you sell off compared to the others? Okay, unless you have that much of buyers, and especially now with the economic situation pretty bad, house prices high, a lot of houses are not being sold, especially the high-end houses. So what to do with that? So it is a problem. Okay, so all those high-end condos yang sekarang ni banyak tak terjual, it is a problem. Okay, so how shall we go about it? Okay, but anyhow, concept is where you need to determine is this the right way? Okay, location wise, if you're talking about construction, you need to make sure the location, you need to make sure the budget is there, funding is there, type of house that or type of building that you're going to construct. So all of the at the concept level kat sini. So once you think that okay is a go, we should invest in that and we see a good prospect, then you can identify what do you want to do in detail. Okay, so the vision, the mission, how do you actually tackle what is the current problem? So maybe in this area there are a lack of houses, limited houses. That is how we actually define that. Okay, this is the reason that we are going to construct a residential at that area. There is a need by the people. Okay, so we define it. So we have objective what we want to achieve. Okay, what do we want to build? So once you have that, then you plan how do you want to execute your project. Okay, so you got things quite clear, more or less quite clear here. You will need to plan. Okay, so strategize, come up with a planning, what could go wrong, so risk assessment and so on. And then you execute. Okay, so while you're executing, you will monitor and control. And this will be quite a lengthy phase kat sini. Okay, and finally you will close out. Okay, so you will close out by having final report. Normally we call it apa tu postmortem. Okay, so postmortem and lesson learned as well. Okay, so lesson learned, review and so on. So it is important for us to actually put most of the effort or much of our effort at the front end. Sometimes we get excited. Actually, this is what the diagram mentioned. Sometimes we have project, okay, we got a project, we got it awarded, we got excited. Okay, so dia terlebih excited, then and you do not plan it properly, because planning planning is sometimes people see it as yelah, it's desk job. Okay, so you need to do a lot of research, and people sometimes think that don't think too much, just do it. That is the problem. So tak fikir sangat, just do it with minimum effort kat sini, and you put it here. If there are issues, the corrective action tu mahal. Okay, you could have actually solved it here itself. Especially if you did not do a proper market survey, you did not survey the competition. At the end of the day, after you have completed a certain project, and you can see banyak project Gajah Putih. So the project is of no use. Then you will see abandoned structures yang it creates sore to the eyes lah. Okay, so sometimes you can have that. So just because we rush things through. Okay, so because sometimes people see that this stage nampak macam very superficial. But actually, if you do it properly here, you will save a lot of your time here. Okay, so that's why it's very important the effort at the front end, so that you dah foresee whether this would be achievable and hit the target as you want. Okay. Okay, so I think in project, what do you actually manage? Straightforward lah. Okay, so we need to manage the scope, we need to manage the time, we need to manage the resource, budget, and so on. Okay, so your scope is the task you need to complete, schedule is the time, and resources are the people, equipment, monetary nature that you need to manage. Okay, so those are the things. Other than that, basically, if you are managing other areas such as safety and health, pollution-wise, and so on. Okay, so major problem that could be encountered, but there are many others. Okay, these are just some of it. It's a very short list. There are so many others. You might find that you might come across inadequate resources, especially now. Okay, so during the COVID, where we especially project yang in situ concreting and so on. Okay, so a lot of workers were sent back or basically went home during the COVID. And now when the economy is up and running, all the sites are open, you do not have the workers. So that's the thing that they are trying to get in workers sekarang. Okay, so that could constrain, cost constraint lah. Okay, inadequate resources. Same also as material. Okay, so material, if you do not have the supply, then inadequate pun causing problem. Masa COVID lah was quite a problem juga if you have factories closing and so on. Okay, unrealistic deadline. So I did mention just now, sometimes deadline could be unrealistic, tapi we still take on the project because we need the project. Okay, so sometimes that happens and we kind of like resort to lower level, lower quality material dan sebagainya lah. So that comes into picture of workmanship, material problem, and so on. Okay, so any unclear goals or direction, but in construction, I think this shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so it is pretty clear in the contract, this needs to be addressed. Cuma, the unclear direction might come from your supervisor to the workers. That might be an issue, especially if there are language barriers. But nowadays, even though there are language barriers, usually the workers would have the kepala to manage them. But if there are any issues in direction lah. Team member uncommitted, this one is quite common as well. You might get people uncommitted. It's like not every everything in a bowl, and not every egg is good lah. Basically, dia ada some one or two rotten egg macam tu. So team members might be uncommitted, but still, as a project manager, you need to do something about it. Okay, so you can't just because organizations, sometimes you have to be very careful if you are the project manager. Sometimes we hope on to the people who boleh bekerja. Okay, so we give them tasks, responsibility, but to one point, dia akan create dissatisfaction because only they are the one doing the job. Dia ada team member yang tak pernah buat kerja, and but still the salary is still on dan sebagainya. So sometimes it's not easy lah, it's difficult. So sometimes we tend to go to someone yang boleh buat kerja, but at one point they will get exhausted as well. And then you will lose both sides. So dia kind of delicate to handle kat sana. Okay. Insufficient planning. So if the plan is being done in a very hasty manner, like cepat, okay, so without thinking thoroughly on the potential risk here and there dan sebagainya, contingency plan dan sebagainya, and if there are any communication breakdown. Okay. All right, next. Okay, project can be defined successful if you could be able to complete on time, within the budget, and the quality conformance as required. Okay, and these are some of the project management activities. Okay, so you need to have design, analyze, design objective, plan the activities. So these are some of the activities or elements in project management. Okay, so estimate resource. But once we go through project definition, project planning, you see that these are basically covered lah. Okay, so I think the words here are pretty clear lah. Increase company's workers, communicate, closure, control, defect prevention. Okay, so quality assurance lah ni. Issue solving, issue management, quality management, forecast future trends in the project. Okay, basically you need to identify the risks. Okay, so risk, defining the product, analyze results, tracking. Okay, I think it's fine. Okay, so benefits of project management. I mean, if done properly, it will provide good satisfaction to the customer. Okay, because you should be able to complete your project within the 3 elements that has been agreed upon. Obviously, with satisfied customer, you might get them to get back to you the next time around. Okay, so and also the words of mouth would go through the community, so you might get other business. You might have this expansion of career opportunities. Okay, so improve knowledge. Okay, so basically project success everyone wins. Oh, this is the last one. Okay, all right. So far, any question on this topic?
No question, Doctor.
No question, So the next topic will be project management in Malaysia. I think that one will start it in the next week je lah. So for this week will be this topic, and after this I will pass to you because yesterday we skipped one. I think I did open a YouTube untuk yang 1 hour tu. After this, I will place it in the WhatsApp that I need you to complete a Padlet. Okay, so there are questions, 3 questions that I need you to complete in a Padlet. So you can complete it by the end of today. If possible, it's just very short questions. So that would address, or that would cover the yesterday's class of 1 hour. Okay, and I think the U Future I created 2. So one will be for today, one will be to cover yesterday. I think I place it 12 to 1 ke, or something like that. So just check the YouTube, just check the U Future. Okay, so after this, I'll just place the Padlet so that you can just answer the question for the yesterday's class. Okay. All right. Any question? Okay, kalau tak ada for today, we'll end the class here. Okay, so I'll see you all next week, and thank you for attending.